Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Winnipeg Committee for Safety for Tuesday, September 23rd. With me here today is members of our citizen committee. We also have a special guest with us here today is our mayor, Mayor Gillingham. So we're looking forward to hearing from him. We have members of administration. First, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis, and our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40. First, can I have somebody move the minutes of the last meeting? Hey, Jesse, all in favor? And motion is carried. All right, first on our agenda, very excited to have Mayor Gillingham here to talk about his safety strategy. First, I was wondering if we could do just a short little, so you get to know the citizen members of the city sitting on the committee.
So can I just interrupt?
Sure.
We just need a remote participation.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
remote participation. Okay,
Yeah.
all in favor? Motion's carried. Sorry about that. Okay, so Tracy, do you want to start on the
Okay, I'm Tracy Proctor, the coordinator of this committee, and prior to that, I served as a citizen member for 5 years and said I would take over for a brief period when the other coordinator left, and that was 3 years ago. So, but I'm happy to be in this role.
I'm Jesse Andrushko. I've been on the committee for just over 4 years. I live in Old St. Vital.
Hi, I'm Jess Smith, and I've been on the committee for, I don't know how long. I live in Elmwood.
3 years.
And I work in the West End.
I'm Greg McPherson, work with the City of Winnipeg. I'm the acting manager of the Community Development Division within the CEO's office. It's good to be here. I've been part of this, in and out of this committee for a number of years, just as a support. So glad to be here.
I'm Kerry LeBlanc, and Mr. Mayor, welcome and thank you for taking the time to sit with us. And I've been on this committee for 10 years, inclusive of 9 and now next term. So really happy to have you here, and I live in West Kildonan.
Callan Davey. This is my first year joining the committee. I work at Skip the Dishes just over at True North Square and live in East Port Garry.
Do you want to just mention it?
My name is Jade Noctegal, and I'm the assistant committee clerk for the committee.
And I'm Jennifer Ridge. I live in the East Kildonan ward. Just received my voter's notice yesterday. And I've been with the committee since about 2002.
And I think we have somebody online, right?
Mm-hmm. We
Ariana?
have
Ariana?
and Inspector Ria.
Oh, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. It's always tricky when you're working from home and audio is always like fuzzy. So, okay. So my name is Aliana. I'm a senior policy and program analyst in the crime prevention unit within Manitoba Justice. I'm the policy analyst that's responsible for managing community mobilization and Lighthouses initiatives. So, hello. Nice to meet you all and nice to see everybody.
Who's next?
I'll go ahead. Good morning, Your Worship, and everybody. Well, hello. It's Kevin Riel, Inspector of the Community Relations Division, in charge of crime prevention, safety, our school education cadets, and our volunteer and victim service unit.
Okay, next.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Leanne Gardner. Can you guys hear me okay? That's
Yeah.
always my excellent. I'm a member of the committee. I have a background in community safety and policing, and I work for Southern Chiefs Organization right now.
Perfect. Thank you. And welcome everybody. And Mr. Mayor, we're so happy that you're here and looking forward to hearing from you and your safety strategy and how, we can help kind of do that work on our end through the work we do and how we can support you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Councillor Roy. And thank you to you and Tracy for the invitation to be here. Thank you also for the treaty land acknowledgement. I want to recognize also all City of Winnipeg staff who, support the committee and have some for many years. And so thank you very much for your ongoing dedication as well. There's a lot of, I think, really good progress in my mind that has been made when it comes to focusing on community safety. And the progress I'm most, I think, excited about is the coordination. Councillor Gilroy and I have been on council now for many years. I have never seen this level of coordination in my time here, which is really exciting. So when you take a look at, you know, the Committee for Safety and the interest in the work that you're doing, but the Winnipeg Police Service, Downtown Community Safety Partnership, community safety officers, the biz patrols in the Exchange District biz, West District, the downtown biz and the West End biz, Bear Clan. There's so many agencies and entities who are now beginning to coordinate much more intentionally. Maybe I'll just start there. And recently, well, I guess recently at the State of the City address a few months ago, I announced the intention to establish the Safe Winnipeg Initiative. What that was is it was what it is. It's really building on what is already existing. So this is nothing, you know, cut from new cloth, as the saying goes. It's taking all the agencies, many of whom have been coordinating, meeting together, strategizing together on a regular basis, and really formalizing that. And Greg McPherson here is really leading and kind of holding the pen, as it were, on that initiative. But I want to give credit where credit's due to Greg Burnett, the DCSP, for his leadership, our Winnipeg Police Service and their leadership. And there has been a real intentional shift, I believe, on their part to really be full participants in the coordination with DCSP. So under Chief Bauer's leadership, Chief Christian Schmidt and his team have already been, and for years have been coordinating with the DCSP. But then, you know, Bob Christmas and the community safety officer team also coordinating. So all that to say, and you know, certainly probably Greg is better positioned right now to even answer the status of things. But the Safe Winnipeg Initiative really builds upon some of the work that was already being done, and that coordination that was beginning to kind of come together because of the strong and dedicated leadership of the people involved in those agencies and beyond. I describe it this way, that part of the vision is a blanket of safety, especially for the downtown and then beyond. That, you know, that blanket of safety is impossible unless there's coordination. You know, maybe if I can just stretch that analogy a little further, it's like kind of building a quilt, patchwork. You make the little pieces, but then you put them together. You get a lot more coverage if that's all together rather than a piece here and a piece there, an agency here, an agency there. They're helping to identify the gaps and the overlap, and you know, to reduce and eliminate both, so that the people of this city, the businesses of this city, have better safety. And so that's critical. And the ongoing work, and I want to thank you, each one of you. Some of you have been on the committee for some time now. No, I shouldn't have looked your way, Karen. Sorry. It was accidental. But ongoing dedication, care, concern for public safety. Just a couple of highlights of some of the actions that we're taking right now. Some of the ones that specifically perhaps that, you know, as council we've led, and I've led in our budget 2025, we're funding 36 new police officers and additional patrol cars over the next 2 years. That's the first city funded investment in policing and patrol cars in a long time. Police are not the answer to all things. I understand that and appreciate that. But our city has grown. In the last 3 years, our population has grown by 71,000 people just in and of itself. And so there's just a need for more police presence to try to begin to keep up with some of the population demand, not let alone the demand in that's coming with crime as well. We've restored the joint Winnipeg Police RCMP warrant unit. That unit targets violent repeat offenders who are breaching their court orders. They're not going after, obviously, people who have perhaps been convicted, served their time, and are now behaving well in the community. These are individuals who have been convicted of crimes, and they're breaching their court orders, violent crimes, and they're breaching their court orders. The staggering reality is that the latest number the police released in their public meeting, the police board meeting in June of this year, was that in 2 years since that warrant unit has been up and running, they've made over 700 arrests. That's almost one a day. These aren't people stealing chocolate bars at 7-Eleven. These are people who've been convicted of violent crime and are out breaching their court orders. So that warrant unit is doing very, very important work. We've intentionally, as a council, improved transit safety. We know that that has been a challenge. And so we've established a community safety officer program and team. And they're doing work on buses and around transit stops as well. Now, in partnership with the transit inspectors, we've begun fare enforcement. The Associated Transit Unit indicates that 90%, these are their numbers, 90% of all incidents, like violent incidents on buses and assaults on drivers, disruption for passengers, 90% are individuals who have not paid their fare. They just get on the bus. Winnipeg Transit says we lose about $7 to $10 million a year in fare revenue loss from people just getting on the bus without paying. I'll be, candid. The reason for fare enforcement for me is not primarily to recoup money. It's to keep disruptive individuals off the bus. Our operators still have the discretion. If they see someone, and I ride the bus sometimes, I saw it the other day, an individual who appeared to me to maybe be unsheltered and homeless, got on the bus, didn't pay. Driver let them on because they needed a ride. Fine. The individual was behaving themselves, sat down, went for a ride on the bus. So our drivers still have the discretion. If someone, perhaps can't pay or doesn't pay, they're gonna, let them on the bus. We're doing the fare enforcement though to try to make the bus safer for all people. With the police service, they've increased their downtown foot patrols. With Councillor Gilroy's leadership, I commend her for this. We now have a motion that has come forward regarding encampments. I believe it strikes a balance where we recognize many individuals still don't have the housing needed, so they may need some temporary shelter overnight. But we're just setting some rules in place to say you just can't set up a tent anywhere and everywhere around the city. And we're especially, with Councillor Gilroy's good leadership, especially targeted and focused on not allowing encampments in parks and playgrounds, especially. We just, we just can't have the ongoing issue of children being concerned about being in a playground. Sometimes that activity can lead to discarded needles that have been used. So it's about safety for kids, seniors, families, and so we're working on that. But we also know when it comes to public safety and community safety, it's not just about policing and the policing type responses. We need to try to get upstream. So as a council, in our last budget, we committed to investing $1 million more per year over the next 3 years into youth programming. So we're partnering with proven agencies who are working with young people, whether it's recreational programming, arts programming, other social programming, life skills programming. So there's 17 different agencies that we now are partnering with some we partnered with before. We've given them bump in funding. One, for example, is EarthCom. I know they have a fantastic after school program. We're giving them a bit more so they can expand that after school program and reach more kids. So it's that kind of work we're trying to get upstream and invest in kids and young people to ultimately lead to a safer community as well. We continue to fund Downtown Community Safety Partnership with other organizations as well. And really the goal there when it comes to Safe Winnipeg initiative, that blanket umbrella is really a shared plan with shared data, coordinated approach to preventing crime and tackling crime. We're still certainly in the early stages, but we're getting there. Maybe just one other thing I'll mention before two other things I'll mention before turning it over to questions, Councillor. I did talk in my State of the City address also about hiring in my office a public safety advisor. And so we haven't done that yet. We've started to look. Two of the primary roles that individual was going to play, one was to help develop the Safe Winnipeg initiative, but frankly, Greg and his team are doing that and doing that admirably and doing a great job of it. The other is related to having this individual help establish a fourth response, a fourth agency that could respond to 911 calls. Right now, if you call 911, the 911 operators have two choices: a police response, fire response, or paramedic response. Sometimes you need both, but that's it. We see it. You've talked about it at this committee. There are so many individuals in our streets who are struggling with mental health. They're not criminals. Maybe they're not breaking the law. Maybe they're in the midst of their crisis. They're not a danger to anyone. So it's not a public safety issue, but it's a health issue. And what they need perhaps is a mental health response. So we're working on developing a fourth response, a mental health response. Now, the police do have the very effective ARC unit, which is one police officer and one mental health worker. But this would be a response that it would just be mental health workers. For that to happen, my understanding is the Mental Health Act has to change. And so I appreciate my conversations with Minister Bernadette Smith at the province. That's under her portfolio. They're reviewing the Mental Health Act. She's open to whether or not it can, should be amended, so we can just get a fourth response, which would be a mental health response for people that need that response. Yesterday, and I'll have one more thing, and then yesterday I'd stopped at a drugstore in my community out in the west part of the city. And there was an individual sitting there outside the door who needed some help. Talking to themselves, yelling to themselves, talking to people as they were coming in. Not a threat, didn't seem to be a threat to anybody, just seemed to be in the midst of either a mental health issue or perhaps they were under the influence of drugs. And I thought, that's exactly what we need. We really don't need to tie up police resources for this person. We probably don't need a paramedic because the ambulances are overrun. We don't need a fire truck, bumper truck with 4, 5, or 6 firefighters on it. But the individual does need some help. I called 211 and our community outreach folks were going to be on their way, but they were really busy. That would be a prime example where that person probably should have got a mental health response specifically. And we see that a lot in the city. To me, and Councillor Gilroy and I have talked about this, and I think we share this view, probably you share it. I think it's important for us as a city, whether it's us elected officials, our public service, or members like yourself who care about public safety, that when someone calls 911, they get the right response. Not a response, but the right response for their need. And so that's really what part of the goal is. Final thing I'll say is, right now we are in the process of really focusing on calling on the federal government to make changes to bail. So the federal government has indicated they are going to be bringing in legislation that amends the criminal code related to bail and sentencing reform. We need that. There are too many cases where individuals that are committing crime in our community are doing so while out on bail, or they're breaching their court orders. There's always room for improvement. The stats show that the system needs to change, needs to be improved. So I've been very vocal about that. I'll continue to be vocal about that as well, because it's really at the end of the day about public safety. So maybe I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, and thank you everyone here for the work you're doing as well.
That'd be great. And you know what, I think you got like 5 minutes for questions. So does anybody have any questions for the mayor? You don't get an opportunity to have them very often, so it's kind of nice to ask questions. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, again, thank you for taking the time to be with us today and share your vision and safety for our city. So it's certainly a dynamic challenge. 15 years ago when I started sitting on this committee, our city was obviously less people, obviously less challenging in the safety issues. I really want to commend the mental health thing. I think that's a key element. I think that we need to stop. Jackie Watsky, when I started in this thing, Jackie Watsky was trying to get police to do police, trying to get fire to do fire.
Right.
And so this was always that crossover element. So Thank you for recognizing that, because it is, and we need a whole new medical system dealing with mental health. Ambulances attend, not policemen. All of those steps, firefighters need to be doing fire. So thank you. I look forward to seeing that challenge. I have two questions for you today, sir, after that ramble. The challenges that we face as a city in and around today's subject of safety, you sit on the National Forum for Mayors. And so we're not alone in this challenge. And so what do you bring? What can be brought from those national meetings that we can challenge and take forward? And how can we as a committee help?
So I really appreciate the questions. Two things. Yeah, I'm the vice chair of the Big City Mayors Caucus across Canada. So we are not alone. You're exactly right. Every major city in Canada, the smaller communities are facing the very same set of challenges, just kind of on scale. Two things. One, the mayors of Canada are calling for bail reform to keep violent, especially violent repeat offenders who are breaching their court orders out of our community. And we're not just calling for and put them in jail and throw away the key. We're also calling for an investment in the reforms that are necessary, rehabilitation necessary. So there's a better chance that when someone is incarcerated, they have access to the programs that they can get a hold of them and, you know, their lives can get turned around. So that's one of the things that we're doing, for sure. One of the other things is when it comes to this idea of the mental health response, Toronto has something like this, where when you call 911, a mental health worker and team can be dispatched. Right. One of the things that I think I would ask you as a committee to consider doing is kind of raising, continue to think about it, talk about it, and raise the awareness and because it's about public education as well, right? Mm-hmm. So as your committee kind of dives into this kind of thing, any community safety improvements, it's also you play a key role in just on a public platform, because it's a public meeting, talking about this and raising the awareness so people understand how we can do it differently for the sake of improving outcomes for people.
Okay, so I know you gotta leave, and I think Leanne had one question for you. Is she still here? Leanne?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. I love how you made it clear that it was one question.
Yeah.
No, I understand. So thanks so much, Mayor, for being here to speak with us. I do have a question. It's probably not a simple one. I'm going to ask it anyway. You mentioned the blanket of safety approach and coordination. For any of us that have tried to do any kind of multi-agency or multi-sector work, we know that the reality is quite often any kind of collaboration often ends up resting in the personalities of the humans that happen to be in those positions at the time. It's been my experience that there's some challenges in that collaboration and the seeing where the interests are overlapping between those key players downtown when it comes to DCSP and the CSOs and transit and WPS. We know that a ton of it overlaps. The interests overlap. I know that the responses that everybody feels are going to be effective don't necessarily align. My question to you is really just how, within your roles and responsibilities, authorities, can you support that kind of collaboration over time, regardless of who a chief of police is, regardless of who the lead in a program is. And I know that answer isn't simple, but it's one that the reason we're here with so many of the gaps that we have is because everybody for so long has been sticking to their mandated areas, while the public safety challenges shifted out of those areas and often end up at the intersection of a bunch. So I'll leave that as my question is how do you envision it, or have you got that far yet to how to make sure once you establish it, because I'm not sure how much is happening now, how do you keep it going?
Through the chair, thank you, Leanne, for that question. That is the spot on question. You're exactly right. It's a great question. Part of what my answer is that right now, we have the fortune of having, I think, the right people in the chairs in either the lead of those agencies or enough willingness to get to the table and participate and be part of that collaboration. And you're right. So I think because we're in this kind of sweet spot window of time right now, that's why we want to seize upon it. I think we have the right leaders at the helm of each of these, so whether it's police, DCSP, and then all the other agencies and beyond that I mentioned, this table as well, right? This group around this table. I think we're in this moment of time that I think now's the time to establish a Safe Winnipeg initiative. And then as to the continuity, how do you keep it going? This, I may be a little bit idealistic in it, in my thinking here, but I think by establishing the Safe Winnipeg initiative, we then set a standard and expectation that this must continue. So, and I would really hope that in the future then, anytime there's a potential leadership change in any one of those entities, any one of those seats around the table, that part of the expectation in choosing a new leader for that agency is, oh, by the way, we expect you to fully participate and lead in the Safe Winnipeg initiative, in this coordinated blanket approach. We were committed in this community to this collaborative effort. So we don't want you pulling away and off thinking you're gonna, do your own thing. So that might maybe a little idealistic, Leanne, but I think I take your question because it's you're exactly right. The effectiveness can ebb and flow depending on the players around the table and where they're leading their agencies. Either they're going to pull together or they're going to fly on their own. So thank you for the question.
I have one
Thank
more,
you.
Madam Chair.
Yeah. You can, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
You got a couple more minutes. Okay.
That is the timer.
Sorry.
I just wanted to contribute to this because I think that's an excellent question as well. So part of the wisdom of the initiative is to bring together a joint action committee. And what we're doing to ensure that this carries forward is creating memorandums of understanding. There are specific initiatives that, let's say, the DCSP and the WPS are partners on. We're ensuring that that's formalized so that this carries forward without the risk of it dropping off after some of key leads the table.
Yeah.
And I'd question the goal. What's success look like? And if we don't know what that is, then we're just continuing to chase something and we don't know what it is. So what I'm looking for today, Mr. Mayor, is we talk about a strategy. I need a concrete numbers that say we're going to reduce homelessness by 10% in 2026. Something concrete that, because I'm an athlete, I need a goal, and so is that part of the strategy? Do we talk about that as a success and or what does success look like?
I think I'll throw it to Greg here because as I said, he's really working on the, at the table with all these entities and agencies about the visions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We are fortunate to be sitting with the executive director of the Downtown Biz, Kate Fensky, and she's been driving home that exact point that we need KPIs, key performance indicators. We need to have a sense of what our theory of change is. What do we want to see things look like in 5 to 10 years? And then how are we going to measure our success? And that's so we have established that. We have a number of actions that we're working on. I can provide more detail on that probably at the next meeting, just with allowance of time. But we have concrete KPIs attached to each of the actions.
Awesome. I think the citizens of Winnipeg would appreciate that, not just in this committee.
The business communities, it has been a backbone of some of this work. And so we're carrying forward work that had already been started.
Awesome.
And they've asked for that exact factor.
And to Leanne's question, that then gives us that ability to continue on legacy pieces, because this is where we want to be.
Okay, so I do have to see the time. Thank you very much for coming. We'd love to have you again. We're doing a lot of great work here. We had the opportunity to share some of that work with you, and we want to continue to build that relationship and be a part of what you're doing here in terms of safety.
Thank you. Sincerely thank each one of you for all you're doing and appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Yeah,
Think they-
never forget, you're a member of this committee.
There we go.
And,
Yes.
yeah, come and see us more often.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Each state?
Okay.
Sandwich? I have to sandwich.
Around two, but
Okay.
Take care. Thank you.
So, I guess, does somebody just want to move the mayor's report? Okay, Jesse, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay, and, just help yourself to sandwiches too, if you didn't get something, while we're working here. All right, I guess my verbal report, you know what, I think I'll save this till next, if I can just move this to next week, just with the time, I think we're gonna be talking a little bit more about, the terms of references and the budget. So I'm gonna move my report to next week. I don't think there's anything too telling that needs to be reported right now. That's okay. Can somebody just move that to the next month? Okay, Jess, all in favor?
Next week or next meeting?
Next meeting. Yeah, thank you. Okay, and now we'll move on to the proposed amendments of the terms of reference.
Yes, so if you'll remember, since it seems like so long ago, we earlier this year spent some time working on a new terms of reference for the committee because the old one was very old from going back 25 years ago. And so sort of where we left off and with Leanne's good suggestion at the time that we look at making sure that this document met sort of Indigenous inclusion goals. And to that end, I checked with the city's Indigenous Relations Department and had them read the document over. And that was Jessica Paley that did that. And Jessica also took the time to look at some of the other civic committee terms of references that were newer than ours, just to see how they compared in that regard. And she felt that they were all lacking. And so I think we popped the lid off of a bigger can of worms, but I think it's a good thing because it's something that all the committees should have a focus or an understanding of. And so what Jessica would like to do is, I don't know, like, not that she's gonna do the work for us, but to talk with us about what that means, what we should be thinking of as a committee, what do we want, to look at in that regard and have as part of our focus and what we think of. But maybe it could be a situation where all the committees do get together and we have a day or something where we work on this and learn about it as a group, because we do all have that same focus of serving the city and whatever committee we're on. So there's probably still a little bit of discussion that has to happen with that. But in the meantime, her recommendation was approve your document. You need something to work with. And so we'll do that. But with the eye to that, we're going to revisit this hopefully before too long. And there might be changes in that regard.
So fully supportive of that idea. And just looking at the amendments at the end there, section 10 and 10.1, I think right now the terms say we can review them annually. I'm just wondering if we should leave room in our terms to allow for this to be amended at other times. And the other reason I'm thinking about this, not just for the work that Jessica wants to do with committees, which I think is very valuable, given what the mayor was just discussing and the work that Greg and his team are doing, I think there's also probably ways for us to amend our terms based on the work that is happening at a broader level. And so, right, we want to be a part of that quilt, that fabric that works together. And so if we have KPIs coming down from the city around where you're wanting success to come from, I think it would only be natural for us to want to plug and play into that. And I'm wondering if we should just leave room in the amendments to allow for us to review on a more than annual basis and be flexible and agile in that way.
Yeah, it could say, it doesn't have to say annually. We could say as required or as determined by the committee that, that, like you say, if something else, an external factor comes up that would require us to look at that, then yeah, we could just change that to say
Annually at least gives you like a permanent. The other suggestion, as needed, well, what does that mean? Right, so I think there needs to be something on a permanent sort of structure, quarterly, half year, something that pins us to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could it just be at minimum annually?
Yeah, there you go.
That's good.
Yeah.
So it insists that the it insists that the committee remember to, because it also, it's not only really looking at the words and the T's and C's, it's often, I think, in my experience with committee work, reminding all of us what those are, because sometimes it'll be like a bit of a refocusing effort as well as like updating to match what you really want to be doing. And then that doesn't, if you change that to at minimum, then it also doesn't mean we can only do it then.
Yeah.
I'm assuming no one's going to get super excited about trying to amend T's and C's every month or anything.
Yeah, let's not make more work for ourselves. Then
Yeah.
I think staying agile and flexible to the broader work that's happening would serve us and the citizens.
Yeah, to the bottom of it says to remain relevant and.
Thank you.
Is there any other areas that we can put a discussion on, or?
Well, we did have good discussion on it at whatever meeting that was. Like, I feel like it was April or May. And then, after that, the budget working or the terms of reference working committee, which was Jesse and I, also, went through it again to look at the language, the way things were said and, just to make sure that, it was meeting all the goals of what the committee was working on. So.
Do you want us to move this as amended then?
Well, if everyone is okay with it as it is, because we are gonna now at least agree that we're gonna revisit it regularly. So, there's always, and hope that it is a living document that is gonna change over time as our work progresses. So, in that amendments, point 10, we could change it to say the committee shall review these terms of reference at a minimum of once a year, if that's once per year, and may propose amendments to the executive policy committee for submission to council for approval. So, which is just basically, that's how it works, is we present this to EPC and then if they approve it, then council approves it.
Okay. Jesse, do you want to move this because you were on the committee? Okay. All in favor? Motion is carried. All right. Now we're moving on to the Winnipeg Committee for Safety, the 2026 operating budget. So as you can see, I don't know if you've all had an opportunity to review this.
They have.
Okay, yeah. And I know that we've talked about this before. I would like to move something up with a recommendation to, is it EPC or what do we discuss?
And then you could add that it goes specifically to the 2026 budget working.
Okay, budget working
process, yeah.
And so that we can try to get more money. We all know that this, Harry, you haven't been here for a while, but you can see that our budget's been really
going the wrong way.
Yeah, it's going the wrong way. And there's quite a few other committees that have quite a bit more, substantially more than us. We're doing really great work, so much that I just want to highlight, because this is the work you all did. The lady at the front desk that you see coming in, her name's Cassandra, and she helps anybody that's coming in, because a lot of us counselors were in and out. And so she created this binder, of community resource binder, and she know what she used to do it? Our cards. So she took our cards and compiled all the information onto these sheets so that this is a reference for all the council and any other department within the city of Winnipeg. So you should all get a little tap on the shoulder because you all really worked hard on this, and this came from this budget. And this is a lot of work to produce because you have to go back every once in a while and check out all the information, make sure that that is correct, make sure that we're updated on the correct information so we're not giving out bad information. It is used in all of our libraries. We can't keep these off the shelf, and we've had to turn down some requests because we just don't have the funding. So and then ongoing interest in us really being a coordinator and really being proactive with community groups that want to start like their own Citizens on Patrol or Neighborhood Watch and those kind of things. So really being the conduit to connecting the citizens with the city of Winnipeg. And of course, us doing the regular monitoring of what's going on at the city of Winnipeg and how we can work to improve what we think or maybe cracks we see in our city services that might help in terms of safety. So a lot of really great work, but we need the finances in order to do it. And I guess we're looking for somebody to maybe move this so we could put this forward and hopefully get some support from EPC to move it to the budget working group. Okay.
Because the amount that we have currently to work with would be $51,297. But $50,000 of that is my contract fee. So in reality, we would have $1,297 to work with next year, which and then Carrie, as you mentioned, the phone cost is $1,000. So take that down to less than $300.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't. We could hardly have a meeting for that. The lunch today probably would have kicked that right out.
We're gonna have to pay for lunch now.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, that's, we don't aren't spending money on those kind of things anymore. And there's things that I am assuming as part of my role as a contractor that, for example, I used to turn in all my receipts for parking downtown. It's expensive to park down around here, and I stopped doing it because there is no money in this budget to cover that. So I pay for it on my own. And it's just also too, like when we just had a meeting with the mayor, there's a lot of value that we bring to the table, and it's way more than $300. So it's time to get that in line better. And so what I've proposed is that the increase move us up to $84,500, but that's not honestly being extravagant. That's just to honestly do the work that we should currently be undertaking, or things that we're doing that are underfunded. So I think if we can get on a ball where, we're asking for regular increases every year, that the value of our work is seen and we're moving forward with that, then I hope that gets us going in the right direction.
And this is still well below other committees that get more money. So, and in terms of where the city wants to prioritize things right now, we should be a higher priority because we are doing the work right now that, that is what the city of Winnipeg residents are telling us to do. So, yeah. So the difference, Tracy and I did in addition. So the difference in the increase is $33,200 is what more we're asking in terms of the budget.
And then I seem to recall that this number was 90,000 back in the day.
Well, I did a little look back at the history, and
Yeah, I saw some
in
of that.
2001, when the committee was initiated, the budget was 69,000. So that's 25 years ago. So you would hope over 25 years, you wouldn't be operating at less than 69,000.
Right.
So that amount has dwindled over time. I think there's probably times where it has gone up because there was a period of time where this committee was giving out grant money. There was a chunk of money that the committee was giving that out. People were applying directly, and then the city changed that to that the grants were applied for through kind of a central, I can't remember the name of it now, but and we had representation on that grant committee, so we got to still help with some of those choices. And honestly, that money was being given to good organizations for good things, I can say. But that is no longer, that granting pot is not there anymore for anyone. So I sometimes wonder if in our budget decreases, that whoever is the budget working group that is deciding this looked on us mainly as a group that was providing funding to other groups. And since we're not doing that now, we don't need very much money. I don't know. I would really like to speak to them in person.
No.
Find out what the logic and rationale is, but yeah, it's just, yeah, there's a definite,
And there's a question. Leanne?
go ahead, Leanne.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of submit for us to consider. It's linked to the terms and conditions and to the community safety. I don't know if I have the language right that the mayor said, but the strategy that I know it was mentioned earlier that we see what this process and what the actions are going to look like and then what part we might be able to play. The reality is the more we can show as a committee how we can contribute to that particular, like really solidly to that effort, the more likely we can make a case that there should be kind of additional funding applied here, right? Like the more you can align and find ourselves like a critical advisory role perhaps, or like a place where that could be seen by the administration especially as like a place to vet ideas and to come and get those pieces of information. I think it probably increases the chances that we're able to increase budgets if we can show what a contribution to the overall effort is without doing anyone's work for them, of course. But
Yeah.
If I may, Leanne, I sat on the budget committee, and that was a big conversation point that we had, right? It's not just about asking for more money for the sake of asking for more money. It's showing through our cards, showing through the work we do with the citizen committees and the neighborhood watch groups that there is a demonstrated need within Winnipeg to have support. And so if we were to continue down the path that we're going on with the funding continually being reduced, those initiatives are at risk. And the coordination and the mandate that we have is directly tied to all of these efforts. And so, right, Tracy said it pretty clearly. Once you take contractor fee and cell phone fee, that's not enough to fulfill really any of those things that we do today, whether that's through, like, I think especially back to the cards, but I feel like we are already doing the bare minimum. We really should be in a position to step up and provide more.
Yeah.
This budget doesn't necessarily account for that because I think we want it to be reasonable in our request, but it does help us start to take steps towards that because there is value that we're bringing today. It's just within the budget, you'll see at the end, there's a little bit of text on that because I think that's going to be a really important point when we do bring this to council to approve our budget, that we are discussing that.
So very valid points. So I think what we could do is if we could approve the amount today and then maybe Gracie and I kind of work out how we want to present it, really bringing in line the conversation we had today, but also maybe working with Greg a little bit to link to what because the budget working group is the mayor, so really linking to what that umbrella that the mayor was talking about, how we can be a link in that work that they're doing, so that when they do have something in front of them, they see something that is really connecting to the work we're doing. So if you can leave that with me and Tracy to kind of figure out the wording around that, and if we can get the amount from you guys, okay, we will work at maybe something to provide. Is that okay, or do you have to have it to hand in? Can we do something?
You could have a submission.
A submission, that's different than what, okay, yeah. Then we will do a submission kind of highlighting what we discussed here today, that maybe isn't necessarily this document, but more in line with what we want to do in terms of the work that the overall safety plan is going to do. And I can talk with Greg about that.
That'd be great.
I think if I may, it's probably not like the reality is we're so far along that it really is about likely kind of taking what's available and then showing the value that could, or the increased value over the next year that this group could bring. Greg's going to, there's no way he's going to be able to do what he's doing. And I'm sure he knows this already, but like without that, like an advisory and an engagement type place. And that's, I expect will look very much more community level than us, like formal members from service delivery providers, for example. But I bet there's already in those structures, anytime you're doing that kind of planning, and Aliana is more of an expert on this, I expect, than I am, but you always have to bring it to vet and to do gut checks and to have someone actively try to poke holes in your plan. And if we can position ourselves as being that, it may mean that we have to, again, look at our terms of reference, because it might be that our membership will have to be a little more specific sometimes as well, if you want to be able to potentially be like a really demographically, for example, a solid kind of representation of Winnipeg. Or anyway, just my thoughts. Like, I think sometimes there's not, the counselor knows better than I do in the business planning piece. Like, we might not have a ton of success making that case for more funding now, but if you like plant the flag a little bit and say, like, this is where we see us going. We want to have more impact. We're here and we're underutilized, potentially, is what we want to say, right, as a resource. So don't forget about us.
That all makes sense, and you all are valuable at providing this insight and the work we're doing. I think that, this group, I think, has been very, very vocal and hands-on, and I think that's been kind of what we're needing in this, moving in a different direction, maybe changing kind of what we want to see in this committee. So I really appreciate and value all of you guys' work on this, because it's been a lot, right? And you're taking out your own time and your own day to come and meet with us and provide us this information. So yeah, I will do my best. I want to try to get this in though as soon as I can. So I don't want to promise you that I'll get it back to you, but I will do my best to try to really home down and bring that flag, like you said, and address what I think that they're wanting to hear in terms of providing us the funds. So I will do my best to do that. Yeah. All right. So just a mover for the increase. Okay. All in favor? The motion is carried. Okay. Now we're moving on to, is there anything else? No, that's it. Okay. Do you want to have anything to add?
No, but we were going to discuss moving our next meetings. Our next meeting is supposed to be October 15th.
Do we want to adjourn perhaps and then discuss?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Can I have somebody just move to adjourn the meeting, and then if those can maybe just stay online for 1 second afterwards?
Before we adjourn, I just wanted to offer to get lunch next time. That's all.
Oh, you don't have to get lunch. Thank you.
No, but if it frees up even a little bit, and maybe I start a trend, and so it wouldn't be me personally. I think that I actually, like, organizationally, there's a spot there that makes sense. But I'll just throw that out there, that maybe there could be people who donate feeding people.
Tracy will connect with you. All right. Okay. So we can somebody move to adjourn? Okay. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.